All due respect, sir.
Crank it up, let it roll. my soul. Steel toes on, boots in the gravel, heartland truth on every channel. Open Bible, flag on the wall. We say what we believe or we don't talk at all. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell, can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell. We back the bad, we guard the border. We love our guns and law and order. They try to shame every word we say, but we don't bow down, we just press play. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell, can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the bell. Hey, we won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell. You can cancel the show, but not the crowd. We're still here, still talking loud. Hand of the free on every spell. Hit that mic, host, let the truth ring out. This is red, white, and raised hell. Cowboy hat, church bell, can't scare us into silence. We were born to rail from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raised hell.
All right, good morning, good morning, good morning. Underway are we on a Thursday, 30th, final morning of the fourth month in the year of our Lord, 2026. I've been flip calendar a day, at least on camera, for a few days now. I've been trying to make it a habit. It's been a habit for me. I've told you before, I've had this on my desk somewhere, depending on where I've been, for about 35 years. Seriously, that's how long ago I got this. It was in 1990, I think, actually, yeah. So anyway, it's a perpetual calendar. April 30th, quote of the day, inspirational quote of the day is praise, like gold, diamonds, owes its value to its scarcity. Damn straight. You get over the top on praise, it'll start to lose its value, lose its meaning. Only save it for those things that really, really stand out. Good morning. So we are ready to go. Dr. Everett Piper in less than 20 is going to be with us here, or excuse me, less than 30, about 23 is going to be here with us at 7:30 this morning. I'm looking forward to that conversation. Dr. Piper always has a lot of important things to discuss. He wrote a really great article for the Washington Times this week about the SPCL, or SPLC rather. You know that one. That's the one that we tell you about all the time. It's the socialist pushing leftist crap. Some people call it the Southern Poverty Law Center. He was not surprised, was Dr. Piper, about the expose and the charges filed by the FBI in the investigations into the SPLC. The indictments, I guess is the word I'm looking for, funding hate groups that they purport to be able to try to stop. That's their goal, is to stop hate groups. They're funding the hate groups in order to raise money off of their efforts fighting them. Unbelievable. Really, really just crazy stuff. Anyway, Dr. Piper wrote a great piece on that. We're going to talk to him about that. Also going to talk to him about assassination culture in this country, particularly among the left, but we're going to talk about it in general. And then also Tucker Carlson telling everybody why he doesn't go to church anymore. He doesn't go to church anymore, he said, because the churches are just too flawed. Dr. Piper had a response to that for the ages. We'll get into that with him at 7:30. A little bit later, about 8:30, we're going to talk to a congressional candidate, James Hemphill, who's got an uphill fight, make no mistake about it. But he's asking for a little bit of time to share a message, and I'm more than happy to give it to him. He's in the 13th and not 13th, 11th rather, and we're going to talk to James about that at 8:30. Before and in between those things, we have a lot of really important news to get to this morning, including some fantastic news. Is the music still vibing a little bit there in the background? Yeah, I think it is. I got to kill that. There we go. So yeah, we had some unbelievable news yesterday. If you saw the headline page that I put up for today's show, you know what we're talking about here. Let me just pop it back up there again. How about the SCOTUS? The Supreme Court isn't always what we want it to be in this Roberts Court with this supposed 6-3 originalist majority. It isn't always. We know that because we can't trust Roberts much of the time. Some of the time we can't trust Amy Coney Barrett. Some of the times we can't trust Brett Kavanaugh. It's been a very weird thing. The left had just a panic attack when President Trump got to appoint 3 Supreme Court justices because they said it was going to be all conservative activism. And it's not by any stretch of the imagination. I don't want conservative activism anyway on the court. I don't want any activism on the court. I want the court to be responsible and be originalists. I want them to essentially follow the intent and the language of the Constitution. I want them to interpret the Constitution as it was written, not as how it should have changed for today. That activism is what they do on the left. I don't want conservative activists on the court, but I want originalists on the court. Anyway, they have been disappointing, I think, to a lot of us who figured 6-3 majority, we're going to be able to get all kinds of great decisions. We haven't. But sometimes they get it right, and this was one of them. Handing President Trump and, well, quite frankly, you and me, a massive, massive victory in this midterm season. We are just about to head into May. We're going to have our primary on Tuesday, the Ohio primary on Tuesday. We're getting set for this massive fight. There's a big, big problem with districting and redistricting across this country because left-wing states just feel like we should have no say whatsoever, we conservative Republicans, in who represents us in Congress. And I mean that literally, zero, which I'll get to in a moment. That's why Virginia went from a 6-5 Democrat-leaning district now to a 10-1 Democrat-leaning district. It's why California did something similar. It's why so many blue states have 0 Republican representation at all. Somebody explain how that is fair and representative of the population. Obviously, it's not. But yesterday, and then Florida yesterday, by the way, responding to all of this, not with racial gerrymandering, but with simply geography and population, they redrew their districts, and those are approved, and that's going to be a +4 additional seats, likely seats, for Republicans coming out of a very red state. So we're going to get into all of that, but I want to share with you first just the news on what the Supreme Court decided yesterday, because this is obviously humongous. This was basically about the Louisiana case. The Supreme Court had this 6-3 ruling, striking down Louisiana's rigged map. Major victory for Republicans. Race-based gerrymandering under the 1965 Voting Rights Act. Bye-bye. It weakens it. It doesn't kill it, but it weakens it, and it opens the door for fairer maps across the country. In other words, the Supreme Court decided, no, we don't have black districts, white districts, Latino districts, Asian districts. That's not how it works. We don't draw districts by that. We draw them by population and not for racial purposes. So anyway, this was a huge story. I'm just going to let Fox tell that story for a moment here, and then we'll come back and get some react.
To approve a new congressional map that sets Republicans up to gain 4 more seats in Congress. Florida's lieutenant governor says his state is already preparing for legal and political challenges ahead.
Look, this is not our first rodeo. We know it's not gerrymandered. It's geography plus population It's going to hold off on the courts. The shift in population in our state has been significant. This is an accurate depiction of what goes on the ground in Florida. Again, geography plus population equals reality.
And of course, this comes as redistricting fights spread nationwide, including in Virginia, where Democrats just approved a new map last week that gives them a 10-1 advantage. And in Louisiana, where just yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down Louisiana's congressional map in a major victory for Republicans. The court's 6-3 decision split along.
Just realized that it was not actually on the screen for you. Sorry. Again, Dylan is not with us today. So I'm kind of trying to shuffle a lot of things here. So here's the actual video. I'm not going to replay. Fortunately, what you just heard is all you really needed to hear. It was mostly just people on camera, and that was Jay Collins in Florida explaining that the new Florida maps are based on population and geography, not based on race, which of course is extraordinarily important and the subject of the rest of this. So here's the rest of the report.
Along ideological lines weakens a key provision of the landmark 1965 Voting Rights Act and limits the consideration of race in drawing congressional maps, a decision that could open the door for other states to redraw their maps in ways that could affect elections for years to come. But Democrats are vowing to fight back. Watch.
Today's decision by this illegitimate Supreme Court majority strikes a blow against the Voting Rights Act and is designed to undermine the ability of communities of color all across this country to elect their candidate of choice. But we're not here to step back. We're here to fight back.
And Democrats are also calling for the passage of an updated voting rights bill and Supreme Court reform. But of course, they are currently limited in the minority in both the House and Senate. LJ?
All right, you understand what that means, right? Obviously, this is what we've been talking about for some time now anyway. You give the Democrats any opportunity to get back into power, you can say bye-bye to that Supreme Court. You can say goodbye to it. They will pack it. They'll probably, if they win the White House in 2028, if they get the Congress back, they'll nuke the filibuster. And by the time they get a new president in the White House in 2028, if they get a Democrat, they will add no less than 6 new Supreme Court justices. Mark it down, because that'll take it from 9 to 15, and it will be irreversible. Because the new Democrat president will be able to appoint all 6. He'll appoint 6 more Ketanji Brown Jacksons or Jackson Browns or whichever one it is. I don't even remember. I don't care. She's not qualified to be there. She's a babbling buffoon. But that there will be 6 more of her. Make no mistake about it, because of what you just heard there. Supreme Court reform and so forth. What I really, really get a kick out of, which is to say it pisses me off, is Hakeem Jeffries. Hack Jeffries standing up there and calling it an illegitimate court. Why? It's an illegitimate court because of a decision that is literally in the Constitution. They interpret the Constitution by the letter of it. It is the ultimate law. All of our laws are based on the Constitution. And the Constitution prohibits racial discrimination. And discriminating against people by saying drawing district maps based on the color of people is wholly unconstitutional. All right. Do we believe in fairness and equality for all, or do we not? Fundamental fairness requires that race not be a factor in how districts are drawn. The fact that people oftentimes, and it's not even oftentimes, it's almost all of the time, they settle into areas in which they are comfortable. Big cities are packed with liberals who like big city, big tax, government control. More suburban and rural areas are crowded by conservative-minded people who want to be left alone, who don't want to be overburdened by regulations and some of the things that happen in the big urban centers. That's just a reality. That's not a racial issue. That is not a racist issue. That is a simple recognition of where people prefer to be. So drawing the maps based on where people live is how it's supposed to be, not what color of people live in certain places. So what the court did yesterday, and I'm just going to read a little bit of a summary here. In a 6-3 decision authored by Justice Alito, the court did not overturn the Voting Rights Act completely. It should have, but we'll take what we can get here. But clearly put significant limits on its application. The court restricted states from using race to draw those voting districts that help minority communities elect their preferred candidates. And again, you know what it is? It's just playing into the racism that says black kids need black teachers because, they can't learn anything from white people. We need, and that's one of the reasons why DEI exists in a lot of other places as well. Black people need black doctors because they can't trust a white doctor to treat them. Well, black residents and citizens can't have white representatives in Congress. They can't represent them. It's just the bigotry. It's just straight up anti-white bigotry and a suggestion that somehow, some way, black people and white people are so different they can't even be treated by or represented by a person from the opposite race. Now, I mean, I want you to ponder that for a second. Do you know any white people, for every white person who's listening right now, which is the majority, obviously, it's the way it works out, conservatives, if you're a white conservative, I ask you, have you ever been represented by a black person, whether it be a city council level, mayoral level, state representative, state senator, or of course congressional, where you felt like, boy, this isn't fair. I'm represented by a black guy and I'm white. Have you ever done that? Have you ever pondered that? Of course you haven't. We may not like the representative we have, but not based on their color. I didn't like Barack Obama because he was half black. I didn't dislike Barack Obama because he was whole communist. All right? I don't care about his being half black and half white. I give a rip about that. What did he do? What did he say? What were his plans? What were his policies? What did he carry out? That's what mattered to me. I didn't feel less than represented by a black president any more than I would feel less than represented if I have a black congressman. You know who I would love to be represented by? Byron Donalds. Unfortunately for me, he lives in Florida. I live in Ohio. Byron Donalds is to me one of the best young conservative representatives in all of Congress. He's about to be the governor of Florida. He's going to replace Ron DeSantis. You know what I wish I had for a governor? I wish I had Byron Donalds. Okay? I could sit here, Wesley Clark. We could sit here and list a whole bunch of conservative black leaders that I would not feel less than represented by if they were my rep, because I happen to be white and they're black. So why are Democrats convinced that black people can only be represented by black reps? Why is that their default position, that a black person cannot possibly be justly represented by a white person, even if they have the same ideals? Because that's what this comes down to. Let me read a little bit more. The 6-3 decision, which divided the court along ideological lines, further weakens the Voting Rights Act and could prompt some states to quickly redraw their congressional maps before the midterm elections. May I just offer this? Can you dig it? The answer, yes. I sure as hell can dig that. Good. I hope they do. I hope we do. Allowing race to play a part in government decision-making represents a departure from the constitutional rule that applies in almost every other context, Justice Alito wrote in the majority opinion. The Roberts Court has been consistent in a given direction. The Chief Justice stated the position clearly in the court's 2007 Parents Involved in Community Schools versus Seattle School District decision. The way to stop discrimination on the basis of race is to stop discriminating on the basis of race. What a novel concept. And that's exactly what this does. And the left is livid over it. They are furious that they can't count on racial discrimination to get what they want. It's the same thing that DEI is, and it's why we have killed it. To the extent that the president could with that executive order, DEI had to DIE, and it essentially has, because it's racially discriminatory. We all know what it means. If two people are equally qualified for a job, for a place in a class, an admission, with an admissions decision for a college class, whatever the case might be, if one is white and the other is black, and the black person gets a nod because there's not enough black people or not as many black people in that particular field, college, position, a company or what have you. If a promotion is granted based on the fact that we don't have as many minorities on the board as we should, if that person gets even the slightest bit of lift up because of his or her color, it is by definition discriminatory against the person who did not get that extra boost. It's racially discriminatory, and it's wrong no matter who does it or when it is done and how it's applied. So that's extraordinarily important. President Trump, let's just say he had himself some fun posting about this yesterday, about the ruling by the Supreme Court. So this is, and I'll pop this up here and try to make this a little bit larger for you. President Trump, for whatever reason, it's got this little rockin' music thing going on there by the map. What you're looking at is a map of the South, which essentially it's showing where all of those blue areas that you see flashing, which are racially districts that are racially drawn based on what the Supreme Court just said you cannot do anymore, that will become red. As you can see them flashing, they were blue and now they're red. President Trump writing on Truth Social, and I hope you can see that okay, folks. It's like I said, it's a struggle. Today's 6-3 Supreme Court decision in the Calais case is a big win for equal protection under the law as it returns the Voting Rights Act to its original intent, which is to protect against intentional racial discrimination. Thank you to the brilliant Justice Samuel Alito for authoring this important and appropriate opinion. Congratulations, President Donald J. Trump. This has the left in full freakout mode, if we're being 100% honest. They don't know what to do. They're sitting there celebrating a week ago because of what they did in Virginia, which is holy. And there you go. This is what we're going to get into, which is wholly inappropriate and illegal. Talking about what Abigail Spanberger came in and did. She campaigned as a moderate and said she would not allow such gerrymandering to take place, and then immediately got in there and took a 6-5 state and made it a 10-1 state. And they think that's okay. And this is what I want to share with you, because this is, of the utmost importance. Now, that might not be the best graphic I have for you. Well, it's a graphic, so I'll use it. This is an example of what we're talking about. Look at, most of those are the Northeast. Hawaii's in there too. But look at what the Democrats feel like is A-okay as far as representation. Okay, now we're not talking about racial representation because, again, that's illegal. That's unconstitutional. That's what the court just decided. But just ideological or party representation. Okay, in Massachusetts, 36% of the population there is registered as voters, registered as Republican. 0 Republican representation in Congress. That's a small number compared to Connecticut, 42%. Maine, 46%. That's New Mexico. That's not obviously in the Northeast. Like I said, there's a couple others in there. New Hampshire, 48%. These are nearly half and half. Nearly 50% of the population being Republican, and yet the districts are drawn so there is 0 representation in Congress for the Republicans. 42% in Rhode Island, 32% in Vermont. There's Hawaii, as I mentioned, 38%. And then Delaware, 42%. There's more. I want to pop this up on the screen. It's going to block my face, but that's okay. Right in the middle of it, because this adds more to context to this. Now, again, it might be a little bit difficult for you to see, but it shows some of the ones that I just mentioned: Massachusetts, Connecticut, Maine, New Mexico, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Hawaii. All of these nearly 50% Republican populations with 0 representation in Congress. How can that be? Now, the bottom part of that is what you'll see. That's why I wanted to share this. Out of the 121 House seats in the 6 states below, Republicans only hold 24, while having an average of 42% of the voters. Okay? So in California, Illinois, New York, Maryland, New Jersey, Oregon, look at those look at those numbers: 38, 44, 43, 34, 46, and 41% Republican, an average of 42%. So again, a little bit less than half of the people in those states are Republican, and they have just 24 of the 121 seats because of the way the maps are drawn in those states. That is textbook gerrymandering. That is exactly what the court said is not okay. It is not constitutional. And the left is beside itself. You just heard Temu Obama, Hakeem Jeffries crying about this illegitimate court and trying to take away the black vote. Wait a minute. The Constitution was not written for black and white. The Constitution was not written saying we need to have black people represented by black legislators and white people by white. That is exactly the opposite. And the Voting Rights Act is about voting rights. It is not about racial stereotyping and most importantly, as the court just said, racial gerrymandering. Yes, a black man or woman can be adequately represented by a white legislator. And yes, a white man or woman, a white community can be represented by a black legislator. It's okay. It is not going to, it is about ideology. Yes, it is about party. That is what this is supposed to be about. So huge decision yesterday on Louisiana. It's going to affect the entirety of the South. That's why President Trump shared that on Truth Social too. You saw all of those different areas. If they follow suit, and Florida yesterday, grand slam home run by what I would term the very best governor in the country. And I don't know, I'd have to do some history here. And it's probably really impossible to do because it's going to be, opinion driven, but I feel like Ron DeSantis might be the best governor in the history of the country. He might take care of his state better than any governor has ever taken care of theirs. And I'm well aware that Ronald Reagan was once governor of California. Of course, he was a Democrat too for a period of time, but you understand my point. What he just did down there, again, they're flipping. I don't think I have video of that. There was one Florida state legislator that barreled through the vote and the announcement yesterday. Oh, here's another glimpse at the statistics that I was just quoting for you. I don't know if I can make that any bigger again, but it's redundant. I don't want to go over the top with it here, but you can see those are all the different states. If you look at the Northeast and then also add in New Mexico and Hawaii, it's impossible to explain. 0 seats, 40% of the voters explain that. It's not possible to explain. Anyway, I digress. But the point that needs to be made, and this is something that the Democrats do not seem to understand, is that we're not as pigeonholed as to think that somebody must look like me to treat me. Doctors, I mentioned that before. Black people don't have to have black doctors. White doctors will do just as well. Asian doctors will do just as well. White people, you don't need a white doctor. You can have a black doctor. You can have an Asian. You understand this? The idea that we have to have somebody who looks like us teach us. My kid can't go to that school. There's not enough black teachers. Hire more black teachers. Why? Because so my kid can be taught by somebody that looks like them. Why does that matter? This is the essence of bigotry. This is the essence of racism. This is the essence of racial discrimination. And it's true in elections, first and foremost. All right. Want to tell you about our friend, Charlie. Charlie's Auto Repair in Lakewood. The politically incorrect mechanic. He is MAGA. He is a phenomenal patriot and supporter of this country. You also know that he is a phenomenal mechanic. Seriously, an automotive technician, if you will. Charlie figures things out. And this is there's two most important things here. That a car is essentially a computer with wheels these days. It is not just about nuts and bolts anymore. It is about chips and electrons and so forth. Not electrons, but you understand the point. Charlie understands it better than I ever will. You've got electronic problems in your vehicle. You've got dashes on your light that you cannot figure out. This is more than just about a knock and a ping in the engine now. A lot of those guys can still do that work, but Charlie is an expert at getting to the root cause of the problem with your vehicle's engine, particularly as it pertains to the electronics. You fail in e-check test too, by the way, take it to Charlie in Lakewood. You'll come out with a clean bill of acceptance. You'll pass the next e-check, I promise you. But that's only part of the story. The best part of the story for Charlie, he's a unicorn. You can't find them anywhere. He's an honest mechanic. He's not going to upcharge you, not going to replace a part that doesn't need to be replaced because it gives him a few extra bucks, gives him another half hour of labor. There are too many that do that. Charlie is, like I said, a unique guy. He's an honest mechanic. You find one of those, you hold on to it with both hands, and you keep going back to him to make sure that you maintain a good customer technician relationship. Charlie's Auto Repair in Lakewood. There's the number. It's on the screen. 216-470-0170. And don't forget, if you are A, first responder, B, a veteran, C, active military, D, a concealed carry license holder, Charlie gives you 10% off. Did I mention he's a patriot? Yeah, a patriot, MAGA, an honest mechanic. Holy cow. That's the package. 216-470-0170. Get yourself to Charlie's Auto Repair in Lakewood. All right. As I look in my green room right now, I see a familiar face. And since it's Thursday, you probably know whose face that is going to be. He is a regular commentator on this program and has been for nearly 10 years, dare I say. He is, of course, Dr. Everett Piper, who joins us now on Strictly Speaking Unfiltered. Good morning, Dr. P.
Hi, Bob. You doing well?
I'm doing all right, I suppose. Better today than I was yesterday, because we got a great Supreme Court decision that is going to, I think, make the fight in November just a little bit more fair. And that's all I'm looking for is fairness. I'm not looking for an unfair advantage any more than I would want an unfair disadvantage. But I think that was a huge decision yesterday. Any thoughts?
Well, yeah, I do think one of the greatest risks to our republic right now is exactly what you've been covering. I've been in the green room for a few minutes here and listened to the tail end of your previous episode, and the gerrymandering and the lack of democracy in the United States of America right now. We need to remember that we're a republic, but we're a representative republic, and that if you've got 40% of your population that is not represented because of the lack of a democratic fairness in that given state or in that given district or region or whatever, you got a problem. And that problem is clear. You know, the party in power redrew the boundary lines years ago, and people that have a 40% of the population, by definition, in many of those states, sometimes greater than that, just don't have a representative in Congress for them. And that's a problem. That's a problem. I know that because Oklahoma was a blue state for decades. Oklahoma was predictably Democrat for decades. There are still people around. There are old guard politicians that tell me when they were first elected to the House of Representatives or to the state Senate here in the Oklahoma House or the Oklahoma Senate, that they had no voice because the Democrats held such a strong majority at our Capitol. There are a lot of people, when I campaigned for county commissioner here in Osage County, Oklahoma, 3 years ago, there are a lot of people who were Blue Dog Democrats, if you will, and they were still registered Blue Dog Democrats because for most of their political life, they had no voice in the primary if they weren't a Democrat. Zero. I mean, it didn't, if you were a Republican, you wouldn't even, your vote didn't matter. So, because the Democrats controlled the state so overwhelmingly. Now, all of that changed, a few years ago for various different reasons. A lot of those Blue Dog Democrats were conservative in nature, and they recognized that their party was going nuts, so they switched over to Republican. But the bottom line is the fact that one party can control a state or even a county. The county I live in, I had people that switched over to register as Republican for the first time in their lives when I ran for county commissioner, because they had always remained on the Democrat as a registered Democrat because they wanted their vote to count. Okay, now they may have voted for a conservative Republican in the general, but they wanted their vote to count in the primary, so they remained registered Democrats. So I recognize the problem, and I think it's a huge issue that needs to be solved. And shame on our Republicans in Washington, D.C. for not passing the SAVE Act. I think that's another issue. I'm sure you probably covered that already. But what happened?
And we'll continue to, we will continue to, especially since John Thune is almost unilaterally stopping it from ever coming up for a vote.
What's wrong with it? What's your theory? Why is Thune doing this? Why are
he's like a lot of the others, you know, and it's sadly it's not just Thune, but he's not a fan of Donald Trump. He is not a MAGA Republican. He is an establishment Republican. He's a uniparty Republican, which is why when he was replaced or chosen to replace Mitch McConnell, I was scratching my head and going, "What are you talking about? Why would John Thune elevate to this?" Donald Trump won the presidency 3 times, in my view, 3 times. This party has said this is the type of party leadership we want. Why would we choose somebody who's going to be not a never Trumper? I won't go that far with Thune, but why Mitch McConnell was kind of virtually a never Trumper. But why would you continue to choose somebody or somebody of that ilk? Hey, there's MAGA. MAGA the dog decided to come in and visit. Where was I? Oh, on John Thune. Yeah. Why would you want somebody who is not going to be in the same, rowing the boat in the same direction as, 75 million Americans who voted for Donald Trump 3 times, Republicans and Republican voters. So, yeah. And Dr. Piper, last thing on this, and if you want to opine on it before we dive into your column, from what Senator Bernie Moreno told me, there's anywhere between 4 and 12 Republicans in the Senate who are just like Thune, that are not Trump supporters. They're not supporters of the agenda that Trump won on. And so, why won't they nuke the filibuster to be able to, pass the SAVE Act and be able to do so many of the important things that we're talking about? Because if the filibuster's gone, they'll actually have to cast a vote either against what they believe by voting for Trump's agenda, or voting against Trump's agenda and essentially wiping out the rest of their political career, because they will lose. They would get primaried out whenever they're up for re-election. So the filibuster gives them the kind of cover that they need to say, boy, I wish I could vote for the Trump agenda. I'm all for it. Yay, go team, ensuring their re-election next time around, but they don't actually have to put their actions behind their words. So the filibuster protects them. That's why Thune and others won't get rid of the filibuster.
Well, okay, I won't beat this horse to death, but logically, I could not like Donald Trump. I could have issues with Donald Trump. But when it comes to the SAVE Act, why in the world, as a Republican of any stripe, moderate Republican, anti-Trump Republican, call it whatever you want, why in the world would I not see the logic, the common sense, and the legality and the long-term importance of the SAVE Act to my party's health, my party's existence? I mean, it's clear as the nose on your face that if we continue to allow illegals to influence the political climate of the United States of America in any way, shape, or form, whether it be border policy, whether it be voting policy, whether it be registration, whether it be identification, whatever you want to talk about, if we continue to ignore that problem, the Republicans will go the way of the dinosaur, period, end of it. Do these guys not care?
In many ways, some of them don't. Their agenda and their own personal animosity, or whatever it is that you want to have that they have for President Trump. It's, you know what, Dr. Piper, TDS doesn't just live on the left. That's the reality of it. There is a derangement syndrome, I think, that affects certain Republicans, again, the establishment Republicans. There are some of them here in Ohio, quite frankly. Our governor is among them, just absolutely does not like Donald Trump. But when you get members of the legislature whose job it is to enact and carry forward the agenda that the American people signed off on when they elected Donald Trump, when they are never Trumpers, we have TDS addled, we have a serious problem here. Okay.
The last word on this. This is why I've said on your show before, and you and I share common mind on this. I believe that the definition of a conservative is somebody who conserves the principle and doesn't care about the person per se. There's something more important than personalities, and that's the Constitution. That's the principles that are time tested and enduring. And I've been critical of Donald Trump, as you well know, and I've done so perhaps even uncomfortably on your show at times. And some of your listeners probably, this guy's got TDS. I do not have TDS because I voted for the man 3 times. I support the man in what he's doing and the legislation that 80, 90%, 95% of the legislation, I've applauded it. But when he's been wrong, in my view, I've said so. Because conservatives should do that. They should be willing to criticize their leaders when they're wrong and thank them when they're right. And the fact that these guys with TDS can't thank their leader when he's right, even though they don't like the man, proves they are not conservatives, but they're ideologically driven as much as the left is.
That's a fair statement, and I don't think that's beating it to death. I think that's an important point. Same here, and I've said this on shows with you and on many other times on my shows. If you can find somebody, a politician with whom you agree 85% of the time, latch onto them. That's a win, because you're not going to find somebody you agree with 100% of the time. It's just not possible. If you find anybody you agree with 100% of the time, what you have found is likely a mirror. There's nobody else that is going to think exactly like you all the time. So I'm going to have 5 to 10%, maybe 15 of disagreements with President Trump. And it's okay to say it. It's okay to say it in order to find common ground with one another. We have to be able to say, you know what, I love him, I support him, I'm glad I voted for him. I would never have voted any differently, but I disagree with him on this one. Either a policy, usually not even policy, it's usually just manner of delivery, which is what upsets so many people. And sometimes it gets fatiguing. It's very difficult sometimes to continue to defend the person that you voted for and that you support so vociferously to those who hate him so much, when he gives them a lot of ammunition to criticize. So it's a little hard sometimes. But the bottom line is, in fact, Dr. Piper, let's go one step further on this. I'm going to share a screen with you here, because I saw the story yesterday. I didn't run this yesterday and didn't talk about this yesterday, but I think it's important to now. Trump says gas prices could remain high through November, through the midterms, which is I want you to respond to on two fronts. One, the politics of that, because of the midterms. That's not good news, but also on the personal financial aspect, the budgetary, the economic aspect of that for Americans. And my personal story here about this is my son, who is a recent college graduate, is working his way into the workforce, whose, finances are limited, as most 22-year-olds are, right? He filled up his tank yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday, and it was $60. And he texted me and said, I'll read it. And because I love my son, and he is as conservative as the day is long. He is his own thinker, and I love that about him. But he actually, a huge Trump supporter, huge fan, gets into really, really good debates and discussions and arguments with friends who are former football teammates who are on the other side of the aisle. And he said this, sent this actually to me and to my wife and his sister yesterday. I'm sorry, this is a long thread. So he said, can somebody explain to me why gas is more expensive than ever? It went up 2 days ago, or I'm sorry, my wife said it went up 2 days ago, and then sarcastically said Trump's fault. And he said, no, but seriously, are we still blaming Biden? 2 years into this term, and I'm paying $60 to fill up my Ford Escape. He said, and I said, hey, this is still all about Iran, and global oil prices are affected by that strait. He said, I don't care about Iran. Then they didn't vote for him to stop all global threats. We voted for him for a better American life, for illegals being gone, and for low prices. So, and the thread went on from there, and I tried to explain some things. And the young man makes a very compelling case. Hey, let's worry about what's going on here, not what's going on around the world. But Dr. Piper, the reason I went to that length is to ask you, do you think there are people who have Trump voting regret right now because of those gas prices that Trump said are going to continue likely through the summer and most of the fall into November? It's going to hurt a lot of Americans' wallets, bank accounts, etc. Do you think there is going to be Trump regret among voters, the way my son kind of hinted at in this particular moment?
Yes. It's very concerning. It's very concerning. You've got thoughtful people who are conservative in principle and conservative in their politics, who would say exactly what he just said. I didn't vote for anything to do with Iran. Mm-hmm. And let's talk about the elephant in the room, or Israel. Okay, that this is Candace Owens's and Tucker Carlson's shtick, and I'm not saying your son's in that camp,
No, of
but
course not.
it is Carlson's shtick here. I regret, but this is what Carlson is saying all the time now, openly. He's not even hinting at it anymore. I regret voting for Donald Trump. I seriously should not have voted for him. Well, the question people need to ask themselves is, what was the alternative? We would have President Kamala Harris right now had you not voted for Donald Trump. And I understand it's difficult to discuss a negative or to prove a negative. Well, that wouldn't have happened if. It's difficult to explain. It's difficult to say that if Donald Trump wouldn't have done what he did in Iran and continues to do right now, we could be facing a nuclear threat right now from one of the most hostile nations on the face of the earth, a nation that has said repeatedly that Israel should be eliminated, as well as the United States, because we're the great Satan and they're the little Satan. They've said that. They've been threatening us for 50 years. They've been killing our soldiers and our civilians for 50 years. They are at the point of being nuclearly armed and therefore a nuclear threat. And the whole game changes once a regime like that has a nuclear bomb. Why aren't we intervening in North Korea right now? Well, the reason is North Korea has a nuclear bomb. And if we go in there and intervene aggressively and do something similar to what we're doing in Iran, then we could instigate a World War III, a nuclear war. And Donald Trump isn't stupid enough to do that. So we have to handle that evil regime in a different way than we're handling Iran. So, but the point is, somebody like your son or anybody else would say, well, you don't know that. You don't know for sure what would have happened had we not gone. I mean, we were fine. We were doing just fine. We'd done fine for decades. We held them at bay. You don't know that for sure. Well, then you have to trust the research that you are aware of and what seems to be pretty logical and evidence. These guys weren't developing nuclear technology just for civilian use. So you have to get into the discussion. Yeah, I get it. You want to have a happier, easier, more prosperous life, freer life here in the United States. And that's our first priority. That's why we voted for Donald Trump. And all of this international intervention stuff should be secondary, if not even non-existent, as far as why I voted for the man. I get that. But if you hadn't have voted for him, you'd have Kamala Harris, you'd have a nuclearly armed evil regime called Iran. They would be blackmailing us literally at every turn, and gas prices would be going up because they would now control the entire Middle East, the entire all of the oil that flows through the Straits of Hormuz, all of the oil that they would control through the OPEC nations and through everything that takes place over there. And because they're a proxy of China, China would be controlling it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think these people have to understand that, yeah, gas prices are more expensive. I am concerned about it. I think a lot of people are buying into Tucker Carlson's shtick, even if they would be critical of a lot of the anti-Semitism that he's speaking right now. They emotionally resonate with this idea. Wait a second. I didn't vote for higher gas prices. I didn't vote to be in a literal war with Iran right now. We shouldn't have started this. Why is Donald Trump doing it? And I'm suffering for it when I fill up my pickup or my car.
Here's a part of this, if I may add to this. And this is what I explained to my son too, and he gets it. And he is in no way, shape, or form in the Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens camp or about Israel or anything else. He's just solely about, look, I voted to keep our great economy that we had when Trump was around the first time around, low gas prices, which we had when Trump was around the first time around, and so on and so forth, to seal the border, to get rid of the fentanyl, all of the things that Trump ran on. So why is my gas so expensive right now? That's his literally only concern, which I can totally understand, and mine too. But what I explained to him and what I try to explain to this audience on a regular basis is, what benefit is there for Donald Trump to bomb Iran and to start this war with Iran right now in the middle of the most important election term since his election, which of course is to define the last 2 years of his presidency? How would it help him knowing that if you bomb Iran, it's going to affect energy prices and gas prices here in the United States for all of the voters who voted for you and for the Republican majority that you enjoy right now in Congress. Why would he do that? What's the benefit for him to do that, knowing it's going to hurt him here at home? And the answer is there is no benefit. There's no benefit to him starting a war with Iran in this midterm cycle, in which if we lose in November and he loses in November, he's impeached in January. Just that's it. Know that for a fact. He's impeached again. Everything he wanted to do is not going to be able to get done. So why do it, President Trump? Why do this now? Why alienate some of your voters and make them pay $60 to fill up their gas tank by getting into this war with Iran right now? And the answer can only be because it is as dire of a threat as he says that it is, as the intelligence says that it is, as Marco Rubio has outlined step by step by step exactly where they are and how this is the most important time and the only opportunity to stop Iran's nuclear program right now. Because there's no other explanation as to why President Trump, believe me, if he could have pushed this off until maybe right before he left office, I'm sure he would have liked to do so. But the stockpile of ballistic missiles that they have been gathering, as Rubio laid out, is going to make them virtually untouchable if we don't go in and stop them now. So I think about it from that vantage point. Do I like paying more for gas right now? Of course not. Do I hate that my young, just starting out into adult life son has to pay more money than he can really afford to for his gas? Of course I don't like that. But there wouldn't be a reason for this if President Trump didn't legitimately think, and as all of his advisors, legitimately think that we're talking about national security and world security, which is going to be in peril directly if we don't take this action now, because there's no other explanation.
And agree 100%. However, we're talking about proving a negative, proving what would happen or what could happen if he hadn't have done this. And that's the reality of life. We just need to understand that we're always making decisions on those assumptions based on the information that we have. Problem in America right now is there's such a lack of trust in our established institutions, in the media, in politics, government, even in the church. People don't trust the leaders any longer because of so many lies. The COVID. I think COVID just imploded on the American psyche, the American mentality of trust. It broke any system, any assumptions of trust that we had in the establishment. And I think we're suffering for that right now. And every crisis you see in the church, every scandal you see in the moral leadership of our country just exacerbates that problem. So I understand it, but we can't live in a world like that. We've got to understand at some point in time, we've got to understand that you elected Donald Trump, perhaps for other reasons than what's going on in Iran right now, but you elected him because you believed that he was a trustworthy person. You believed that what he had done in his first term and the things that he had done, he would continue to do because he had proven his measure. He had proven who he was. And I still believe that. I believe this man will protect my religious freedom. I really do. I mean, he's proven it over and over again. Does he share my religious views and everything? No, he doesn't. He doesn't. But I do believe he's going to continue to protect my freedom to be a Christian, and that all of his decisions are likely going to move in the positive direction in terms of that particular priority for me. So do we trust him in similar fashion when we don't have access to all the facts, when it comes to Iran, when it comes to international affairs, when it comes to what he knows about the price of oil and what it would be if we didn't intervene? Again, the negative. What would it be? What would gas cost us? What would it cost us to fill up our car if Iran all of a sudden has the control of the Straits of Hormuz and the Straits of... If Iran is controlling this conversation rather than the United States of America, what is our economy going to look like? It's not going to be pretty. So we just have to think of things in that way.
Yeah, I totally agree. And with respect to, and he does not, I want to be very, very clear. He does not regret his vote in any way. He's just ticked off at what that gas price shows and what that bill is.
And
But,
Bob,
but there are a lot of people who are ticked off and regretting their vote, which is kind of the beginning of this portion of our discussion.
yes.
And I want to read a quote here, a couple of quotes from Ben Shapiro from the Daily Wire, who is responding because you brought up Tucker and Candace, and we talk about them on a fairly regular basis. They occupy more of our thoughts than really they should be allowed because they're not worth it. But Ben Shapiro responded to Tucker's "I am sorry," apologizing for his support for Trump and helping him to get reelected. Ben Shapiro wrote this, or actually said this. There's a transcript of it. "I do not regret my vote for President Trump in 2024, not one iota, not one bit. And frankly, I find the entire conversation about regret pretty confusing because here is the thing. The alternative would have been President Kamala Harris. Let's be clear. The vast majority of things that President Trump said he would deliver on, he has delivered on. And the vast majority of principles that he said he believed in, he has effectuated. So why are all these people suddenly confused? He's doing the things he's been saying for 40 years he's going to do. And why do they think it would have been better if Kamala Harris was president of the United States? And I have made, Dr. Piper,
Amen.
that same argument with people saying, look, it was a binary choice. If you are having Trump vote regret right now, that means you wish Kamala Harris, you had voted for her and others would have too. And we would be under that rule right now. Ponder that for 20 seconds and you'll remember why you voted for President Trump.
Absolutely. And we remember what economic times we were living in under President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. That would have continued. So the price of gas wouldn't be any lower now than it is because we know what it was under Biden and the price of eggs, the economy, inflation. I mean, we need to remember the unfortunate thing, and I'm preaching to the choir now. Everybody knows this, is because the media doesn't allow the positive message of conservative policies and conservative government to be in the mainstream, to be part of the narrative. They just squash it, or they lie about it, or they just completely negate it and ignore it. The mainstream media doesn't allow anybody to have this conversation. So our electorate, like your son and et cetera, the only place they're getting their information right now is online. And unfortunately, even some of the conservative feeds that they've gone to over the years are turning critical, and they don't even discuss the reality of what it would be if we had a President Kamala Harris. What Ben Shapiro said is spot on. I think the advice we need to give to everybody is continue to get balance in your media consumption. Don't, if one of your trusted conservative sources is saying weird things and kind of leaving the reservation, so to speak, you might want to double check that and go to another source that has been trustworthy, about Frantz, and Everett Piper, Ben Shapiro. Go and listen to what they're saying. If one of your other go-tos is acting a little strange and weird and saying that they don't even think that they were right in voting for Donald Trump, and the logical assumption is, though, okay, Kamala Harris, you thought that's better than Donald Trump now? Go and listen to a broader cross-section of the conservative commentators out there as you consume your daily news. And I think you'll calm down a little bit and understand what's going on.
Yeah, that's good advice. And for me too, what I would also suggest is go back and listen to the speeches. Go back and listen to the speeches. Go back and listen to the interviews. Go back and listen to the debates and everything else with Kamala Harris. And tell me you think our country would be in better shape right now with that buffoon in charge of this country. Goodness gosh, I can't even imagine. Okay.
And go back and listen to Donald Trump's speeches too. He told us 25 years ago that he was bomb Iran, that he thought he would, quote unquote, bomb him to hell. I mean,
well, you know who else told us that, Dr. Piper? And I reminded my son of this too, and everybody else. Hillary Clinton did. Hillary Clinton said that in the 2016 when she was running against Donald Trump race. She said, and Iran, just so you know, and Obama said the same thing. We will, stop you. We will take you out if you continue to pursue your nuclear ambitions. I think her words were bomb. We will bomb Iran, or I will order the bombing of Iran if they, if they pursue that, that nuclear program again. So it's not like Trump is trying to say something that the Democrats disagree with respect to Iran. Both sides, both parties have been saying for years that Iran, for 47 years, that they're a threat, but in particular of the last 20 years when they have really put their foot on the gas with respect to their nuclear ambitions. And they have all said, both parties have said, we're going to stop it. It's just that Donald Trump is the first one to finally say, yeah, I'm going to do what I said, rather than just say it again and push it to the next guy. Because the next guy might not be able to handle it if we don't do it now, because this is how close they are.
Yeah.
And with that stockpile, they're able to protect themselves. Again, that's why, it was laid out pretty clearly. So, okay. Having said all of that, Dr. Piper, I just want to ask you about the assassination culture here, because they tried for him again, of course, on Saturday. The third direct attempt with firearms in the vicinity of the president. Obviously, they shot him in Butler. They were pointing at him at the golf course before being stopped, and then in West Palm, and then, of course, what happened on Saturday at the Hilton in D.C. There are probably many other plots that have been disrupted before it got to that point, but 3 different cases that we're aware of in which the firearms were present and they were gunning for him quite literally. And then, of course, Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. Steve Scalise was shot and nearly killed. A whole bunch of other people were shot at in that particular case. Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, shot by Luigi Mangione because somebody was mad about health insurance prices. It seems as though killing people, particularly high-profile people, has become almost a first resort for people who are outside of their ever-loving minds on the political left. Does that mean there aren't some people outside of their minds on the right? No. But none that I'm aware of are trying to kill their political enemies. I looked for coverage before we came on this morning. I scoured the internet for coverage of attempts on Barack Obama's life. My screen was blank. Same thing with Joe Biden. Same thing with Kamala Harris. Same thing with Hillary Clinton. Okay, the bullets are only traveling from the left to the right. They're not being fired in the other direction. So why do you think that assassination culture has taken over the political left?
Because of the hate of the left. The left is a hateful party. It has a hateful agenda, and it uses hateful language. It's the Saul Alinsky strategy. They accuse their opponents of the very sins that they're most guilty of. It's the Southern Poverty Law Center. And, I wrote about that this week. I really believe that the language, the agenda, the messaging from the left engenders hate. Again, they accuse their opponents of the very things they're most guilty of, and they do it with a straight face. They do it on tolerance. They say, I can't tolerate your intolerance. Therefore, they're demonstrating that they are the most intolerant in the room, while they accuse their opponents of being the very thing that they are. They say, I hate those hateful people, okay? When you say you hate those hateful people, you are demonstrating that you are the hater, and you're more guilty of the hate than those you're accusing of it. That's what they've been doing for years, and the result of that vitriol, that hyperbole, the exaggerated claims of Trump is Hitler and the Republican Party is loaded up with a bunch of Nazis. This is like 1930s Germany. The language that they uses engenders panic in their followers and causes people to conclude that they're morally justified if they go out and kill the hater. Because if they don't kill the hater, if they don't kill the Hitler, then that Hitler and that hater and his Third Reich will prevail, and we'll be living in this evil world of Nazi Germany. That's what they've convinced their followers to believe. And Bob, I know this personally. You know that I wrote about it in my column this week in the Washington Times. 10 years ago, I experienced this Southern Poverty Law Center hate myself. Now, the irony was at the time, there was a woman, an academic at the University of Utah, who was getting an honorary degree. It was 2016. Her name was Lynette Nielsen Gay, Dr. Lynette Nielsen Gay. And she's the founder of several organizations and a board member of many philanthropic good organizations that do excellent work. She's the founder of Engage Now Africa, Engage Now Africa, and the Ensign College of Public Health in Ghana. She's also on the board of organizations such as Choice Humanitarian, Family Watch, and the International World Congress of Families. So this is, and the University of Utah was honoring her, giving her an honorary degree, and if I recall correctly, she was going to speak at their commencement that year. But something happened. While they were doing this, all of a sudden, the University of Utah changed this woman's vita. They changed the information about her on their website. They expunged any record of her being part of the World Congress of Families. Now, why did they do that? Because the Southern Poverty Law Center had labeled that group a hate group, quote unquote, a hate group. And why did the SPLC label the World Congress of Families a hate group? Because the World Congress of Families stands for something very simple, and I know this for a fact, and I'll tell you in a second why. They stand for the nuclear family, the fundamental unit of society. This is their language, the nuclear family, the fundamental unit of society. But the SPLC labels them an exporter of hate because of this pro-family agenda. So at the same time that this is going on, where the University of Utah basically lies about this woman by default, a sin of omission. They take any reference to the World Congress of Families off of all of their material about this woman because the SPLC has labeled the World Congress of Family a hate group. I was speaking as one of the keynote speakers at the World Congress of Families annual convention. It was about 3,500 people in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I was one of the keynote speakers there. And this is a very interesting organization. It's very ecumenical. It's Jews, it's Mormons, it's evangelicals, it's Catholics, it's Orthodox. It's a group of people from around the world who come together in common cause. They've got different creeds, different faiths, different religious statements, but their common cause is they believe in one man married to one woman, committed for life to raise their children within that predictable tight-knit thing that we have called the family unit. A mom and a dad raising their kids is a good thing for culture, for kids, for the church, for the country, for the economy. That's what they believe. That's it. It's no more complicated than that. And because I spoke at the annual event, their annual conference for this Congress of Families, I was put on the right-wing watch by the Southern Poverty Law Center and their ancillary group called the HRC, the Human Rights Campaign. I was put on the right-wing watch. I was labeled a hater because I supported the family. That's it. So they've been doing this for decades. They've been accusing their opponents of the very things that they do. They accuse an Everett Piper or a Dr. Lynette Gay of being haters while they hate me. And they hate her, of being intolerant while they're intolerant of you and me and her. They're accusing us of the very things they're guilty of. They're engendering all this hate. And then what they get as the result of it is people acting out on the very ideas. Ideas always have consequences. They always bear fruit. And if you keep calling somebody Hitler, if you keep calling everybody Nazis, if you keep calling everybody that disagrees with you an intolerant hater and a bigot, then sooner or later, the people that are listening to you are going to start acting out on the ideas that you've been seeding in their minds and in their culture, in their reality. And it should be no surprise when you keep telling people that an Everett Piper, a Bob Frantz, or a Donald Trump are Nazis, that somebody's going to conclude, well, we need to stop them. We need to stop these Nazis because they're dangerous people. So I'm morally justified to go out there because, well, logically, the United States was morally justified in stopping the Nazis, stopping the Third Reich, stopping Hitler during World War II. So I'm just as morally justified to do the same today. We know this for a fact. We see it. We see the transgender issue. Why is there a disproportionate number of trans people that are committing these violent acts against society? Because they've been told to do so over and over again. Why was the Family Research Council attacked because the SPLC put them on their right-wing watch, on their hate group list. And the SPLC is responsible for the fact that the Family Research Council headquarters in Washington, D.C. was almost a victim of terrorism. It was a victim, but unfortunately, they took the guy down before he actually shot someone in their offices. This is a few years old, but we all know this. The list goes on and on and on. These guys have blood on their hands. They don't care. Now they've been caught. The proof's in the pudding. The indictment from our Justice Department proves that they're doing what I've suggested, that what I experienced some 10 years ago, what Dr. Lynette Gay experienced 10 years ago, this bigotry of the SPLC, labeling anybody that disagrees with them a hater. Anybody that supports a mom and a dad raising their kids is a hater. Anybody who doesn't stand for the deconstruction of the nuclear family, like BLM calls for, is a hater. If you say that, they're going to malign you. They're going to put you in the crosshairs of the people that are following them and carrying out their ideas to their logical extreme. That's what's going on. And now we find that they've given about $3 million, according to the Justice Department's indictment, to who? The very hate groups that they claim to condemn. The KKK, the Proud Boys, etc., have been funded by the SPLC. Why? So the SPLC can engender all of this violence and hate so that people will continue to give them money to stop the violence and the hate. They're dishonest, they're duplicitous, they're hypocrites. And thank the Lord that our Justice Department is finally exposing this, because it's been going on for decades.
It has been, and you keep calling them the Southern Poverty Law Center, and I think we need to change that. I decided this was the SPLC now. It's socialist pushing leftist crap. Just a little FYI there.
Okay.
I made that up when I saw the story that you just talked about coming, revealed earlier this week. Spot on about who they are and what they are, and as evidence of everything that you just said. We need look no further than the manifesto of the shooter from Saturday night. He wrote it in the hotel room before he went out and did what he was going to do. I mean, it was like in the moment. This is it. And everything you just described about Trump being Hitler, this, that, and the other, and all of the members of remember, he wasn't there just to kill Trump. He wanted to take as many of his cabinet out as possible, because it's not just Hitler. You've got to get, the Goebbels and Himmler and all the rest of them too. You got to get the whole Third Reich, which is what the mentality is. And when you read that manifesto, and I'm not going to do it again, I've already done it on this program, and people have already read it and seen it in other places too. But when you read that language, and this has been said before too, it isn't unique, and it isn't like from the dark recesses of the web. It's mainstream. It's the same thing you will hear from podiums at which Tim Walz speaks, calling, Trump's ICE agents the Gestapo. It's literally from the halls of Congress. It's from the mainstream left-wing media. They're all saying things that this guy said in his manifesto. So, this is how, words become actions. You do inspire these people, and he's laying it out. This is why I'm doing it, because somebody needs to save humanity. Somebody needs to save America. And boy, that orange Hitler has got to go. And I'll just read the one line from it where he was doing his rebuttal to the objections as to why he shouldn't do what he was doing. Here it is. Objection number 4 was, as a half black, half white person, you shouldn't be the one doing this. And his own rebuttal to himself, quote, I don't see anyone else picking up the slack. In other words, somebody has to do this. I'll fall on the sword, because he fully expected to be dead. He referenced, in thanking everybody, I won't get a chance to talk to you again. He figured he'd be shot and killed in the effort for this whole thing. So he was expecting to be dead, but he's basically saying, I'll fall on the sword for the rest of you, because nobody else will take out this genuine threat to humanity and to the United States and so forth. So, it's, and what's 10 times more irritating, Dr. Piper, is when we point out everything you just did in that very extensive monologue, their response will be, both sides do it. And I'm sorry. Show me that. Show me that.
They don't. They don't. In fact, what they would have said with a straight face, and maybe they'll still try, they would have said both sides do it. For example, the KKK is on the right. The Proud Boys are on the right. The violence exists on the right just as much as the left. That would have been their strategy in saying both sides do it. Now, we would have rightly said, don't put the KKK in our camp or the Proud Boys in our camp. We don't believe in what they do. We don't support it. We don't want them to support us. We would have said that, but they would have used that strategy to confuse the public, because people listening would say, well, yeah, you've got right-wing extremists just as
yeah, but additionally, and let's not gloss over the fact that the KKK is very, by definition, left-wing. It was the Democrat Party that created the KKK after emancipation. It was the Democrat Party. The Republican Party was founded and built to end slavery and to free blacks and to give them rights. And it was the KKK that was founded by the Democrats and run by the Democrats, and to this day is funded by the Democrats at the Southern Poverty Law Center, the socialist pushing leftist crap.
Exactly.
But let's emphasize that part of this.
Exactly. And why do people believe otherwise? Why do people believe the KKK is part of the conservative agenda? Because they've been brainwashed by the media, by the left-wing establishment, and by, here it comes, our educational machine. Elementary school through the university level has been teaching the lie that conservatives include, the conservative ideology includes ideas like the extreme part of it. The extreme right would be the KKK and the Proud Boys. That's what they've been teaching. So people have bought the lie. Ideas have consequences. I'll say it again. Why did this young man go and try to kill people at the press breakfast this last week? Why did he do that? He's an educator. Where did he get his ideas? He got his ideas probably from the College of Education, from whence he got his degree. He was taught this stuff. He was taught this garbage. He was acting on the very ideas that the ivory tower gave him. And it's no surprise that people actually start doing the things that they've been taught to believe. That's the moral of this story. The SPLC is just a symptom of the larger culture of the left, poisoning the well, the intellectual well, the moral well of the American culture. And it's pervasive. That's why you see this huge rise in the percentage of young people that say violence is appropriate for political cause. You've seen the graphs. I can't remember all of them right now, but I think it's risen from something like in the 20 to 35 year age bracket, I think it's up in the 25 to 35%, maybe more right now, of that age bracket checks the box. Yes, I think there are times when violence is appropriate within the American political system to do what you need to do, to stop somebody that you disagree with. That's
even more than just that general violent statistic you're talking about. I saw one, and it was reported on Fox the other day. 2 out of 10 believe that assassinating Donald Trump can be justifiable. Now, you might say, well, it's only 20%. Okay.
Only?
How many people are in this country? All right. If 20% of the 350 million people feel that way, I mean, we're talking about a very, very dangerous situation here. But yeah, but think about that. How is that number not zero? It's 20% say that killing him, that individual man, can be justifiable. And again, I hate to keep beating the same dead horse here, but I never wanted to shoot Barack Obama, and it would not have been justifiable to do so, nor Harris, nor Clinton, nor Biden, or any of the rest of them. I wanted to beat them with my ideas, and I wanted to beat them at the ballot box, which is why we need the Save America Act to pass so that those can be done fairly, elections, that is. But nobody wanted to just, well, boy, oh boy, we can't stop them, so let's just kill them. We don't do that. I'm sorry. And by the way, I mentioned a bunch of the examples before. I forgot about the one who was stopped with a massive arsenal of weapons, who was arrested right before he went into Brett Kavanaugh's home, for crying out loud, to kill the Supreme Court justice. There was another one. Again, I'm looking for examples of this where the right is doing this to the left, and my screen is blank.
And I hope it continues to. The worst thing, conservatives, real conservatives, not real conservatives that belong in the conservative camp underneath the conservative umbrella. The worst thing that we could do, they could do, our camp could do, is to get violent and then give the left the proof that we're the problem. No, we're not. We're not the ones out shooting up schools. We're not the ones out killing people because we disagree with them politically. We're not the ones that are ginning up all of this anger and fear and this bigotry, this hatred under the umbrella of being anti-Donald Trump. It's dangerous. What they've effectively done, and it's my industry, what the colleges and universities unfortunately have done, and it trickles down from your college and your university to your local high school and junior high and elementary school. And then it enters into the church because your colleges and universities graduate people that go to seminary, and then the seminaries are left wing also. And then we've got all of this stuff in the church and in our culture, in our colleges, in our elementary schools, our high schools, where they're convincing people like this teacher that just went to the press conference breakfast. What do you call the thing? My mind's blank. What's it called? The president's.
I can't think of it either.
I'm sorry. Anyway, you've got people like this guy that's in the news this week who literally has been taught that he is somehow a Dietrich Bonhoeffer, that he's the moral hero of the story for going in and trying to assassinate Hitler. And if anybody you should know, everybody should know about Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He did try to assassinate a real Hitler. And there was moral justification for what he did, but to convince people in the United States by the thousands, 20%, as you just suggested, by the hundreds of thousands, that they are Bonhoeffers for wanting to execute a president of the United States and anybody else who agrees with him. That's why we're in this mess right now. It's the terrible ideas of the left. The SPLC is just a poster child of this problem.
Dr. Piper, tremendous look. We were out of time to talk about going to church, but I loved your post, and looks like it took off big time. Your post about going to church, where Tucker Carlson, one of your favorite people to spar with right now, said that he can't go to church anymore because the churches are too flawed. And your response, paraphrasing, that's why I go to church, because I'm flawed and I need Jesus.
Yeah.
It's not the church that's flawed. I'm the one who's flawed and I need Jesus. That was a great response. Maybe we'll kick that around next time. Or maybe you could write a full column on that tweet, because
I just may, and I may just quote all of the people. Everybody's already written the column for me. All I need to do is quote all of the responses to Tucker's claim that that's why he doesn't go to church. So
exactly, Dr. Piper, tremendous discussion today. Thank you for that, as always. Keep up the great work, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, blessings. Take care.
All right, there you go. That's Dr. Everett Piper joining us. And before we move on, I want to remind everybody about my friend Mark, and he should be your friend too. Mark King keeps Medicare simple. If you are on Medicare, how do you know you are getting the best deal? Meaning lowest cost for most benefits and services to which you are entitled. Are you in the right program? Are you on Part A, Part B? Do you understand Part D? All of that stuff gets very, very complex. And if you're not on Medicare yet, because you're going to turn 65 this year, you're about to be, and you need to know how and when and where to make the right decisions. That's why you call Mark. He's been doing this for people in Northeast Ohio for nearly 4 decades. I've been sending seniors to him for the 5 years that I've known him, a little over 5 years now that I've known him. And everybody that comes back to me says, thank you. Not, who's that goof you sent me to? That didn't work at all. No, everybody is so happy that they have met Mark. And that's what I want you to do. I want you to make sure you're in the right position with respect to what you can get out of Medicare and what you should be paying for Medicare. Mark is not going to steer you wrong, and Mark is not going to pigeonhole you with just one insurance company to choose from. That's what the other ones do. Mark is independent, and he doesn't care which one you pick as long as it's the best one for you, as long as it's the best one for your needs. That's what he's going to guide you on. Call him up at 440-832-8936, like you see on the screen. Log on to keepingmedicaresimple.com. Mark King is the man I trust with Medicare, and he's the man you should trust too. All right. Really, really great conversation with Dr. Piper there. I was just glancing at the comments a little bit to see if anybody had any questions for Dr. Piper. And I noticed, I'm guessing we'll call him a troll. But as long as it's not a troll that's on there just spamming the chat with stupid insults and things like that, I can live with it. And one of them that I saw seemed to be trying to actually have a discussion. And I'm okay with discussions. I won't boot people from our chat, our live stream chat, for disagreeing with what we're saying, as long as there's a discussion to be had, not just spamming and Trump's a rapist and all the other kind of crap we say. That we're going to boot those people as soon as I become made aware of them. And obviously I'm not privy to everything that was said in this chat, but one thing caught my eye just a few minutes ago. It was somebody who tweeted, or I'm sorry, not tweeted, commented, posted on the live chat. Where did it go now? It was something about communism. As Dr. Piper and I were discussing why it is only on the left, this nasty rhetoric that leads to all of this, these attacks, the assassination culture that I referenced. And I'm still scanning for it because I thought I saw it about, 10 minutes ago or so, and I wanted to respond to it directly. But it said something to the effect of, this individual, it said something to the effect of, while Republicans call us communists and Marxists. I can't find it, so I'm just going to have to paraphrase it. And I want to say, okay, when is the last time you ever heard anybody ask, if you could go back and kill Marx before he did what he did, would you do it? If you could, would you have gone back before Joseph Stalin did what he did? If you could have killed Stalin, would you do it? Has anybody said, if you could go back and kill Mao before Mao rose to power and killed 60 million people, would you do it? The answer is never. Nobody asks that question. Nobody talks about assassinating those people before they went on to do their evil things that they, as Marxists and communists, did. But you hear it all the time. Hitler, 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 Hitler. It's as if Hitler is the only mass murdering, genocidal lunatic in world history. People say, if you could have killed Hitler before he started, the Holocaust, would you have done it? That is a topic of discussion in social casual conversation and in academia. Okay? Point being, are we calling people on the left communists? Yeah. Does anybody talk about going out there and killing people for being communists? No. No, we don't. We talk about Barack Obama's own ideology being rooted in communism. Talked about at length during the last election cycle, Tim Walz and his infatuation with Chinese communism and Mao. The classical historical training of radical leftists in Marxist theory. And nobody's talking about shooting them for it. We just point out that we have to defeat these people and make sure they don't take office. Let's defeat them. Let's stop them. Let's kill them. But that's what the left does to what they perceive to be people on the right, because they describe Hitler as a fascist and Mussolini as a fascist. They call Trump a fascist. Ergo, we should have killed those people before they did what they did, so we should kill this guy to save humanity, to save the country. There is no equivalency. That's a false equivalency to say that because we will call people communists on the left, that we want to kill them. You hear Nazis and people think they must die. You hear communists and people say, oh, that's a different economic theory. Right? You hear fascists and you think fascists, they have to die. You hear socialists, oh, well, they're just, looking out for the good of the people. Socialism and communism have killed 100 times more people than fascism have in the last century and a half. I mean, seriously. Fascists, if you want to call them that, and don't forget that what the Nazi Party was the National Socialist Party anyway. So it's not like there's this stark dividing line between right and left and communists and fascists and so forth, because they are all essentially a part of the same, they're branches of the same tree, which is giant government control, boots on the necks of the people. That's the kind of commonality among them. But the difference is when we call leftists and Democrats communists, we don't call for their execution. When people on the left call Trump and Vance and Miller and Rubio and all of the rest of them and Hegseth Nazis, that means they want to kill them. And the proof is in the fact that they keep trying to kill them. Proof is in the fact that Saturday night, the manifesto, it wasn't just Trump. It was all of Trump and his associates, his cabinet members. They've weaponized the word Nazi and the word Hitler and the word Third Reich and the word Gestapo. They want to kill ICE agents because they're the nasty Gestapo. When do we on the right talk about wanting to kill anybody on the left before being communist? We just say, let's not vote them in. Let's not vote a communist Islamist like Zoran Zoltar Mamdani as the mayor of New York City, our largest city and our financial hub. Let's not do that. I see anybody taking shots at him. Just verbal ones saying he's a communist. He shouldn't be in charge of New York. And the people of New York are going to live to regret it. And they are already. 4 months in, and Mamdani's already out of money and he's asking for a bailout. That's what happens with socialism. It's always a great idea until you run out of other people's money to spend. They're not going to spend their own. You got to spend somebody else's. And that leads to death, leads to famine, leads to starvation. It leads to, like I said, hundreds of millions of people just in the last century or century and a half alone. That's what socialism does. If anybody should be targeted for violence, you would think it would be the purveyors of the worst mass murders in world history over this period of time. But it's not that, because we're not those people. We're reasonable people. We have to defeat them with ideas. We have to defeat them with the democratic process at the ballot box. We have to defeat them and stop them from implementing these destructive, deadly policies of theirs. We're not out there trying to shoot Ketanji Brown Jackson. We're not out. Is it KJB or KBJ? I can never remember with that woman. I don't really care. But we're not out there trying to shoot. They're trying to shoot Brett Kavanaugh. We're not out there trying to shoot Kamala Harris. They're trying to shoot Donald Trump. We're not out there trying to shoot Nancy Pelosi, but they shot Steve Scalise. We're not out there trying to shoot, I don't know, pick your left-wing popular vote gatherer, etc. I'm trying to find the left's version of Charlie Kirk. I can't really think of one. It's why they lose. They're not good at this. But we're not calling for the killing of anybody like that, but they killed Charlie Kirk. You understand what I'm saying? So to the person in the chat who's saying, well, you're calling us this, that, and the other. We're not taking action. We are condemning communism as an ideal. We are condemning communists for their ideology. We are not calling for their murder. And we're certainly not carrying out said murders. This is a one-sided thing. All right. I just felt the need to really get through a lot of that stuff. I've got a guest sitting in the green room right now that I want to introduce to you, and you may already know who he is. He's made this run before, and he's back again because somebody has got to find a way to take out some of these. Again, that word means politically take out. So you have to be very careful because the left being so disingenuous. You say they, got to take somebody out. Oh, you just called for the assassination or the murder of somebody. No, you know exactly what I'm saying. To take out politically and get them out of office, people like Chantel Brown. It's why we had Kerry Coleman on the show to try to give him some support and let everybody know about his campaign in 2013 to try to take out, politically speaking, Emilia Sykes. Well, This guy wants to take out Chantel Brown. The 11th Congressional District has long been a Democrat stronghold, as you know. That is probably not going to change anytime soon in terms of the demographics. But if somebody can pull an upset, what a huge boost it would be for that district and for Northeast Ohio and for the Congress, quite frankly. And this man is working very, very hard to do that. Let me put him on the screen first by way of his campaign website. If you'll bear with me, I'm getting there. Yeah, here we go. Kind of, sort of. Sorry about that. That's not the site. There's the site. Let's share this. There's our guy. There he is, James Hemphill for U.S. Congress. He is running in the 11th Congressional District. Again, like I said, he's going to try to take down Chantel Brown. Primaries are coming up, though. And James reached out and said, hey, can we talk a little bit about my campaign? And I said, you know what, sir? We damn sure can. So let's welcome James Hemphill to the program now to talk about this run. James, how are you, good sir? Can you hear me okay?
Can you hear me?
I hear you. Yes, sir. You're good.
Okay, I can't hear you.
Oh boy. Okay. Check your
see.
settings. Check your speaker settings on your computer.
So you have to be very careful.
Yeah. Now you're playing back. Yeah. You don't want to play that back. Yeah. Yeah. You do you have earbuds or another way of listening without hearing to the playback on delay like that?
I can't hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to text you, and I'm going to play a song here, and we're going to try to get you squared away. All right, I'm going to send a text message. That's the wrong song. That's the show open. I wanted to play this one.
Vest on, boots laced. Another name on the paper, another hard case. Got a wife back in Lubbock, kids in their Sunday best. I ain't some villain in a movie, I'm a man doing my best. You can scream in my face, you can block my way, but this badge on my chest means somebody's safe today. You hold that sign, I hold this line in my hands. While you're chanting the street, I'm the one who stands. Yeah, you draw your crowd, I draw the line in the sand. Saw you playing for cameras, shoving phones in my crew, spitting words like traitor, like you know what we go through. When you circle that transport, like it's some kind of game, there's a scared little girl in the backseat, you don't even know her name. You can scream in my face, you can block my way, but this badge on my chest means somebody's safe today. You hold that sign, I'll hold this line in my hands. While you're chanting the street, I'm the one who stands. Yeah, you draw your crowd, I draw a line in the sand. You say you care about people, then you shove them into harm's way. You turn a bus into a battlefield. I'm just trying to get them home today. Call me every name you can think of, I'll still show up when it hits the fan. When the dust clears, when fear's near, we'll see who really ran. You can scream in my face, you can block my way, but this badge on my chest means somebody's safe today. You hold that sign, I'll hold this line in my hands. While you're chanting the street, I'm the one who stands. Yeah, you draw your crowd, I
All right, we're back at it again, and James says he can hear us now, so we should be good to go. James, all set now?
No audio.
You still don't have audio. I thought I just called James and he
Oh
said
my
he was,
God, this is crazy.
well, I'll tell you what, James, I'm going to text you this message. I can hear you. So you just give a speech. All right. I'm just going to do it this way, James. Check your phone. Yeah, for some reason, he's still unable to hear me. So check your phone and just follow that instruction. All right. You just give a speech and we will listen. Oh, he's trying to call me back now. Hey, James, if you I'm just going to say, since you can't hear me, we'll just listen to you. You give a speech and we'll just listen. Okay.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, there we go.
All right. Well, I'm James Hemphill. I'm running for U.S. Congress in 11th Congressional District against Shontel Brown. My focus today is to ensure that everyone comes out to vote. I do have a competitor. The gentleman has not been around to any events. He hasn't made any of the traditional campaign stops, so I don't know what he's doing, but it's important that I move to the next round. I've worked with the Husted campaign and working with the Ramaswamy campaign. We really want to make sure that we stop what I like to call the SB 16, the shared round 16 counties, where he goes in and he runs up numbers with the African American community. And that's how he's had success in the past. We don't want that to happen again. And we certainly don't want a duplicate of that in our governor's race. But I also believe that we have a real possibility that we can flip that seat, the 11th congressional district, because for the last 4 years, I've been working all over the nation with an organization, the organization that I founded, Color of Conservatism. And we've worked in cities like Chicago, Detroit, Milwaukee, Atlanta. We see a discontent in the Black community, but they're not running over in groves to the Republican Party. So one of the things that we've done is we've gone to the ground level, like we're actually in the community on the grassroots level, not at the churches, not at the NAACP, not at any of the leftist hotspots. We're actually in the community talking to the people. I also know for a fact that in the African American community, everything is pretty much if you have credibility, uh, you have street cred, if you will, uh, they will at least listen to what you have to say. We had just recently a candidate, white candidate, that came into the community. He's for Senate 21. He came in, he talked to the community. There was no pushback. All of the things that he said were facts. But the thing is, we have to get the Republican Party into the Black community. Once we're there, we have a clear advantage because policy just isn't something that they're good at. We can, if by any chance, just get our candidates out into the African American community. That's one of the things I'm going to work with the Husted campaign, the Ramaswamy campaign. Get them on the ground levels so they can talk. Because another thing that we miss is that when we're not there, they tell our story for us, and obviously they're not telling a good job. Usually they're lying, they're putting everything on the Republican Party. Everything that's evil in America is Republican, of course. And yeah, I really want to make sure that we give ourselves a chance in that community. Now, this is not just short term, this is long term. We've got right after this election, we're going to gear up for the 28 election, and John Husted will have to fight again for his seat. If I win, I'll have to fight again for that seat. So this is a long term strategy nationwide. We want to make sure that we kind of neutralize them in the African American community. I wish we had some dialogue. Let's see.
In questions this way. I'm just going to text him.
And I love everything that Dr. Piper said, though, by the way. That was awesome.
Can you see that? Can you see the text? Text. All right, I don't think it's going to work out that way. Okay. All right. Well, James, I wish we could ask questions. What I wanted to ask him about is
to reach is not available at the time.
Yeah, he's trying to call. What I wanted to ask him about, it was one of the sections on his campaign website there.
Okay, I see. Text. Yeah. I got you.
There you go.
All right. So, Color of Conservatism. I found it about 4 years ago, and pretty much what we do, we're in the African American community in many of those cities I just named, and our goal was to find conservative voices from within the community that we could use to amplify our movement from within. Like I was just saying, we have an issue where we're oftentimes trying to come into the community and tell them things, but by the time we get there, the credibility has been lost. It's usually around election time, and we don't always have the right representatives. It's not just black skin, because even though they make it seem like it's a black-white issue, white Democrat candidates seem to have no problem with the African American community. So it's not really a black and white thing. It's a Republican Democrat situation because we're not there to represent ourselves. We found that having those conservative voices that are a lot more than people realize, especially on some of the hot topics of today, if we're there and we groom those people, we eliminate the Uncle Tom syndrome, or them saying that our candidates have no attachment to the black community, because these are people who are really there, who sometimes are even activists, who just have conservative values, but they've been led to believe that we're not going to come there to back them up. And so we're giving them that support system, and we're finding that we have a lot of people who have risen to the cause, and they're going to help push our movement.
Good answer. And I'm going to just, I'm going to give you one more question, and if you can respond to it that way.
So while you're typing that, I will just say that we have Deep Blue District. How can I win? As much as it seems like it's a difficult task, well, it is. Let me rephrase that. It's a difficult task, but it's a doable task. And in the Deep Blue districts, again, it's the African American community. When you look at the Deep Blue districts all throughout the nation, the 11th being one of them, because it's a minority district. Hopefully we can kind of screw that a little bit to make it a little more even. But in those districts, they go to the minorities and they run up super majorities in the minority districts. Again, if we're not there and we don't tell our story, we don't have a chance. Because, for instance, John Husted has the Upward Mobility Act. That is an act that goes perfectly with some of the things that I always hear in the black community. For instance, there are a lot of people, usually young black women, who, because they're on a benefit program, whether it's Section 8, food stamps, or whatever, they know that they have a limit, a ceiling that they can't go over income-wise before they just fall off this cliff and they get cut off. Well, if you get cut off of your benefits and you lose $5,000 worth of benefits because you made an extra $100, it doesn't really add out in your home economics. So you just decide that you're going to stay below that limit. Well, his act helps to alleviate that, because it's a tiered system where, as you gain your income, you lose a little bit of your benefits, and eventually you'll get to a point where your income rises above the benefits. And of course, that's the way that it should have been. That's the way it was designed and told to be for us. But, we didn't get that. And so you have that in the African American community. No one knew about this before I learned about it when I spoke with John directly. And this is, again, when we're not there, we can't tell our story. But the Republican Party has always been there to help black people.
Well, that's so important. And what James just said is so very important. And it kind of leads into what we talked about today, our very first story of the day, which was talking about the Supreme Court decision yesterday to eliminate racially drawn maps. Okay. Racial gerrymandering suggests that only black people can only be represented by other black people. And therefore we have this ideological split. Black conservatives like James prove that is not the case. And that's why he is pushing the color of conservatism, trying to say the Black Party can be lifted up by the Republican parties, Black people can be lifted up by the Republican Party and their policies. It's not a left-wing thing. So that's James Hemphill for Congress, as you can see right there. Obviously, he's unable to hear us right now, so we're just kind of trying to show some support for him. And if you would like to donate, as you can see, there's a contribute button at the top of that screen there. If you want to go to James Hemphill for Congress, I believe that is, it's Hemphill for Congress. Hemphill, the number 4, and Congress.com. So if you go to that, if you want to support James and try to turn that deep blue district, of course, he's right. There is a primary. You'd have to vote for him in the primary first. But if you'd like to help him, then try to defeat Chantel Brown. That's James Hemphill. Hopefully we can talk to him again sometime between now and November and actually have his setup on the other side work better so that he can hear us. But James, thank you for being on with us today. We'll talk to you again, I am certain. Appreciate you coming on, my friend. Thank you, James. All right. So it's coming up on the end. It's 8:54. I would be remiss if I did not talk to you about this, which of course is tonight's big event in Strongsville. And let me pop this back up on the screen now so you can see it. There we go. Tonight in Strongsville at the Encore Events Center. You've got to have a ticket. It's free, but you've got to have a reservation. You got to go online to the website, strongsvillegop.org, and navigate to the Walk Down Nightmare Lane, Amy Acton's, Ohio. The COVID mandates, the lockdowns, and the lost freedoms. It's going to be a panel discussion. We will discuss among ourselves, and we will take questions from you in the audience as well as we try to remind everybody of what happened when Mike DeWine gave the keys to the kingdom to Amy Acton, the health director, during COVID. It was an absolute nightmare. Ohio was run as badly in COVID as any Democrat state was, including New York, with Andrew Cuomo killing seniors by stuffing COVID people into the nursing homes, for crying out loud. All right. That's how bad Ohio got. And we need to recognize that. And this needs to be a theme throughout. We're about to start May tomorrow, but May, June, July, all the way to November, we have got to be reminding everybody of what would happen if the person who gave us COVID in 2020, 2021, and 22, COVID policies, Amy Acton, were to actually be the governor. So on stage tonight will be attorney and national medical freedom leader and advocate, Tom Renz. Just ignore the AI. Shannon did the AI on these, and what I do if I upload a picture and say and try to create a graphic like I do for the show, if it is just so distorted and so bad, I will upload a different picture until it can recreate that picture to make it reasonable, in terms of how it looks. Shannon just dumped these in and let it spit out what it spit out, and these are the worst AI images of us that I have ever seen. So ignore that whatever it did to Tom Renz's face there. It looks like it's been run over. Just think about who Tom is. He challenged government overreach in courts across the country during COVID. He helped drive the national movement for medical freedom, while his work was largely ignored by the mainstream media. It wasn't ignored by me. I had Tom on the air constantly during that time, which is why he was on with us live yesterday and is a supporter of mine, because we worked together on this. So he will be there tonight on stage. Same thing here. Ignore the horrible, horrible AI rendering. I mean, it's just some of the worst things you've ever seen. I'll give you an example. Hold on. Just for the sake of the discussion of this, for fun, such as it is. Look at the AI. Okay, I'm just going to give you my Facebook cover photo. I believe it's this one, right? Yeah, look at my Facebook cover photo. Now, this one is a little bit more realistic. I'll share this one real quick. All right, that's my cover photo on Facebook. And you'd have to zoom it to see, but it's relatively, and it took 3 or 4 times for me to upload pictures that it would accept and then be able to recreate in something that even remotely looks like me. So that's what I did on that one. But the one Shannon made for this one, it's just horrible. Again, it looks like my face has been run over, just like Tom's. It's got, I don't know, it's whatever. It's just funny. But what we did, as you may or may not realize, and I'm sure everybody here does, we tried to give a spotlight to everybody impacted by COVID during that time, to business owners, to students, to coaches, to employees, to churches. It was just so heavy-handed, and we fought back against it every step of the way. So I'll be on the stage tonight recounting what it was like for Ohioans during that time. And then Judge Jill Lanzinger will be there, and she seems to have survived the terrible AI run. That one isn't as bad as the others, but it's still not exactly like her. But she is serving on the Ohio Court of Appeals, and she stood up for the rule of law during COVID. Others shut down the courts. She kept hers open and protected due process. Now she is fighting for a seat on the Ohio Supreme Court. So she will be there tonight as well. So Tom and Judge Lanzinger and I will be all together. It's 6:30 tonight at the Encore Event Center on Pearl Road. Love for you to be there. Ignore that Wednesday thing on there. That's a typo from Shannon and the Strongsville GOP folks. It's tonight, Thursday, April 30th. Oh, look at that. It says Thursday at the top and Wednesday at the bottom. But anyway, I hope you guys can be there tonight and come on out and support. And we want to hear from you. We want to hear your questions, and we want to talk about what it means, how important it is to stop Amy Acton from winning. Look, if you'd have asked me 6 months ago, if Vivek Ramaswamy would be in a neck-and-neck race with Amy Acton, I would have called you a nut. Vivek is going to cruise to victory. That's not what the polls are showing. First of all, Vivek needs to put back the challenge of the lunatic, Casey Putsch, the racist lunatic who has just made an embarrassment of himself during this campaign. First, we need to put that fight to rest. And then once Vivek is the nominee, the full court press needs to go on reminding everybody of what Amy Acton did to this state. Because like I said, it is not going to be an easy fight here. According to the polls, I don't know why. Amy Acton has absolutely no qualifications whatsoever to be the governor. The only experience she has whatsoever with government and with political office is when she was given the keys by Mike DeWine, and she did such an atrociously horrible job at managing COVID in this state. So we have to stop her. And the best way to stop her is to remind everybody who she is and what she is. Okay. I can't believe the Democrats couldn't come up with a better candidate. I'm shocked by that. Tim Ryan would have been a better candidate. Allison Russo would have been a better candidate. They're giving us Amy Acton. So you know what? Deal. We'll run with it. And we'll bring Amy's entire history up on stage tonight and over the course of the next several months. So see you tonight in Strongsville, I hope. Before we go, don't forget, and thank you to all the chatters. I didn't get a chance to spend much time in with you today. You know how that goes, though. If you want to ask me questions directly that I can't see during the live stream because I'm talking, hit up the comment section of this episode. Go down to the comment section and ask your questions, and we'll engage. And I hope everybody does that to keep the conversation going. And if you're watching on replay, of course, that's the best place for you anyway. All right. Don't forget to hit the bell, hit the thumbs up, hit the join button. Join us in the locals community. We're posting content there as well. And make sure that you are, if you are so inclined, at least take a look at giving us some financial support. If you want to be a paid supporter and unfiltered insider, it would be most appreciated. And of course, you will be a part of a very select club that we do certain things with together. All right, everybody. Thanks, Dr. Piper. Thanks to James Hemphill. Apologies for the tech problems that James had there, but so glad he was able to join us. I want you to be well. I want you to be safe. I want you to stay free. That's what it's all about. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.